Hey team, welcome to another video. In this very, very special episode, we are going to be discussing Endwalker and a look back at the entire Hydaelyn Zodiark arc of Final Fantasy XIV. So I could not be more excited to have this discussion because I'm joined by a panel of amazing individuals.
Crushing Defeat Media.
So first, my wife Mira is on. Mira, can you say hello?
Hi, everybody.
All right. And then we've got our free company leader and friend joining us as well. Rez, can you say hello?
Hey, what's up, people? How's everybody doing?
Awesome. Awesome. And then last but certainly not least, we've got MurdyMort actually on the channel discussion today. Mort has a relatively new YouTube channel. Is from like what, June? Is that right?
Yeah.
Sound about right? All right. Awesome. So if you are looking for the most easy to understand, easy to follow, straight to the point dungeon guides, it's a channel you want to check out 100%. There will be a link in the description. Check it out, subscribe, do all the things. I don't need to say all the words, you know what I mean? But please support Mort because one, that rhymes, and two, the content is really, really good. So thank you for joining us, Mort, again.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Of course. And as stated, we're going to be talking through Endwalker and kind of a look back. We're also going to, at the end, rank all of the, I guess, expansions and storylines in Final Fantasy XIV from our favorite to our least favorite, so everyone can get an idea of kind of where we stand there. But first, I'd like to talk and start with some of the good about Endwalker. What are some of our favorite things, some of the things we liked the most about this expansion and this end to the Hydaelyn Zodiark storyline? What are some of our favorite moments, favorite characters, zones, quests, so on and so forth? So I will go ahead and start with one because this one is a little controversial. I really enjoyed the Thancred sneak mission where you had to sneak in and dodge the Magitech and the dogs and all that. I really enjoyed that. I thought it was a really nice change of pace from, fetch quests, I guess. So I enjoyed that piece. However, I've heard a lot of feedback that people who've been playing the game for 10 years almost quit over that mission because they disliked it so much. So, but I liked it. I liked it. Yeah.
I didn't really think it was that hard.
Yeah, I didn't either.
Yeah.
I actually really enjoyed it. It was really cool.
Yeah. I had 2 or 3 people comment on the walkthrough that I did that said, I have been playing Final Fantasy XIV for 10 years and almost quit the game because of this one quest that I couldn't get past. So
Wow.
I liked it.
I did too.
I thought the Imperial mission was harder when your body was taken over. I thought that was way more challenging. I thought the Thancred mission was very Metal Gear Solid-esque, and I actually really enjoyed it. It was really cool.
I didn't think it was that bad either. In fact, I was going to say one of my favorite moments was the one where you were playing the Garlemald soldier when you got body swap. I'm kind of pretty surprised to hear that people were so upset at the Thancred one.
Yeah. I agree with both of you. I think the Garlean soldier one was significantly harder. I had to redo that one actually a couple of times until I figured out you really needed to kind of go off the beaten path to make your way through that mission for sure.
I agree. I was so stressed because I had gotten in, I was running the Magitech one and I was like, oh man, I finally beat it. And I was just trying my best. And then my connection dropped. And it was when we were having, the hour wait login. And I'm like, no. And I was telling Callie about it. I'm like, you won't believe this. I finally beat it. And then I lost connection. And now I'm like mid-scene and I'm so worried that nothing's saved. So I had to wait till the next morning to log in. And the game is so amazing. It had saved me like mid-scene. And I'm like, oh, thank you. So I was like, thank you, Square Enix. You're amazing.
Yeah, that was some luck for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. What were some of your all favorite moments from Endwalker? Favorite things?
I think for me, meeting the Loporrits was hilarious. Especially the part where they compared our planet to a carrot that had been left out in the sun too long. It was shriveling and dying. That whole moon sequence made me laugh for like a week straight.
So in Final Fantasy IV, you were able to rename your characters, and the Loporrit that was in Final Fantasy IV, his name was Namingway, and he was all around. You always saw him on different adventures, and you were able to name your character or rename all of them through that method. And they were kind of just took a backseat until now when we saw them in Endwalker. So I thought it was a really cool kickback.
That is awesome. I had no idea.
I didn't either.
Yeah. I love their names. Their names were hilarious, especially the snoozing one or the sleeping one that was supposed to fly the spaceship, but was always sleeping with the booger bubble coming out of their nose.
Nice.
It's amazing. Yeah.
I mean, the Final Fantasy games have just been such like a big, I don't know, inspiration, I guess, to me as far as games go. It's just, I don't know, there's something about them. They've just always been amazing. They've always been so good.
I liked the emotions of Endwalker. The thing that I really enjoyed the most was honestly Emmett Selk, because coming from Shadowbringers, he was such a good bad guy. You know, you just related to him. He was so complex and kind of following you around, and you're like, why is this, you know, you got to know him, and even though he was the bad guy, you liked him, you know, and you could understand where he was coming from and why he felt the way that he did, you know, about the world that he came from. And it just really struck my heart when we got to the Unsundered world in Endwalker, and Emmett Selk turned around and there he was. And I'm like, whoa, this game just went from like a 7 to a 10 for me instantly. And then being able to get to know the world that he loved, and then see that he was a hero and that he, you know, went through many adventures with Azem and Hythlodaeus and Vana. And I was like, wow, this is so cool to experience. And just like the emotions of it made him my absolute favorite character. And I really loved him and Hythlodaeus. And I liked Vana a lot too. But those two I just really connected with, and being able to run dungeons with them and see them in the story and like feel what that past was like really brought this game home for me.
So this is something that Entertainment from the East does so much better than Entertainment from the West, and that's how they handle villains. So whether it's a game like Final Fantasy XIV or an anime or a movie or a show from the East, they do such a better job of making villains that are likable, that you can understand where they're coming from, that have really nice redemption arcs. We tend to focus more on good is good and bad is bad, and the quote unquote good guys are the good guys and the quote unquote bad guys are the bad guys and girls. But that's something that really stood out to me too, is that you've got this villain in Emmett Selk that whether it was in Shadowbringers or in Endwalker, doesn't matter if they're the villain, you still liked them. You still thought they were cool and would want to have, I don't know, what's a Final Fantasy meal we could think of? Roast dodo or something with. Yeah.
I think the big difference between the two was you kind of saw the evil Emmett Selk, I guess as you want to put it, in Shadowbringers. And you knew what he was fighting for a cause. And I think in Endwalker, they kind of explained that cause and really fleshed out his character in a way that they had it in Shadowbringers. I think they really made him even more likable because you saw the beautiful world that he lived in and what he was fighting for and all his trials and tribulations with his friends. It's so hard to encapsulate feeling actual friendship from digital characters. And the way they did that, just the emotion that they put involved, everything they made you feel, just the zone itself, and just everything. They just did it so well. And that was just, honestly, it was like the bow on the top for me. You actually felt something walking up that hill, hearing all your friends. And it was just a really beautifully put together bow on the top of everything.
The music on that Ultima Thule zone was amazing too. Like it just brought everything together. That was like the first time I think in any game where I just sat and enjoyed the music for like 15 minutes while I was walking around.
Mort, it's funny you said that. I was going to say the exact same thing. And actually, I was going to ask if anyone knew where to get that orchestrion roll because I loved that music. And I haven't found it. But if anyone, doesn't sound like anyone on here knows, but if anyone who watches this knows, please let us know in the comments below so we can get that music because, yeah, it was epic. I have a lot of love for that moment and just the smallest bit of disdain. And I'll tell you what I mean. So, like Rez said, when I was walking up that hill and you hear the voices from all the characters that you've interacted with over the past however many years we've all been playing this game. And, you know, it's that moment where you're going to meet the final big bad. Well, second to final technically, but you all know what I mean. And you're heading up that hill. I loved it. And I loved it so much that halfway through, I Control-Alt-Deleted on my computer and I shut the game down and I opened OBS because I wanted to record it, and it started me right back where I was. So I wasn't able to catch that. And then today I went back in the movie player and was trying to see if I could play through that again as a cutscene, and you can't.
Oh, man.
So yeah, it's one and done. Like once you've done that moment, that's it. That's all you get.
We'll just have to keep it super special in our memories for always.
Yeah, bummer thing is I already forgot like what they said and who was up there and all that. You know what I mean? Like it's already gone. I know it was special and I loved it, but I don't remember what happened at all with the words that they said. Who else has something that you really liked?
The one scene that really got me was the Oriandre meeting Mon Brinda's parents. I just thought that they didn't need to do that, but it was such a moving scene. It was just something that they threw out of left field, and I think everybody that I've spoken to kind of was caught off guard by that, just really felt some type of way. Such a special meeting that I think a lot of people always wondered if it would ever happen, and then, you know, here you go, you're getting ready to try and save the world from the end of days, and they meet, and the sweet dialogue between them, it really was a moving scene. You rarely see things like that from games, and they've been building that up since ARR.
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
So that's, 8 years? Over that 10 years that they've been kind of holding that in their back pocket, and I really thought that was one of the most special moments of Endwalker.
I think that's the key to that moment. Is there were a few times throughout after Moon Brita passed that it got brought up for emotional context and to give you the feels or whatever. I feel, Rez, to your point, that was the moment where it was the most effective and where they got the emotional response that they were looking for. So yeah, the parents interaction was good, was real good.
Speaking of parents, I also see Endwalker as a story about winning a parent's love. And in many ways, Vana is like, our mom in Endwalker, and we're wanting her to be proud of us and to walk us through. And we've been waiting for her to show us her love for all of this time. And so now that we get to interact with her so much, it just really warms our hearts. And we're like, all right. And then you could almost see the dad in a couple different ways, but I saw it as Lord Levelure, I can't say his name, Alphino's dad, because he was basically so tough on Alphino and Alize throughout the entire time. And you're like, is he ever going to show his pride and his love for them? And then he finally did come around. And I just felt that triumph of, a parent's love kind of coming through in Endwalker. I thought that was a really interesting concept.
That moment where, and I won't try to, Lord Levier, something like that. I think that's pretty close. Puts his arms around Alphino and Alize, and there's like a close-up of his hand, and he's got these golden rings on there. To your point, that character moment stuck with me so much that it inspired probably the worst YouTube video I've ever made, but it's a rendition of the 12 Days of Christmas, but it's like the 12 Days of Starlight. On the first day of starlight, Yoshi P gave to me a chocobo in a pear tree. But just that moment was so impactful to me, like you're saying, kind of the parental thing where it inspired that whole video. So yeah, I agree.
Yeah, but they really brought it home in a number of ways. So it sound, a lot of different connections there that you just really gave you the feels.
Yeah, 100%. I really liked how the way they made Alphino a sage too was having his mom give him his father's sage tools. I thought that was a really cool way to like transition him to a new class as well.
Yeah,
love
versus
that.
it just happening like it has in the past. It was good that they wrote that in there for sure. And there does seem to be a lot of parental themes in the story this time around, and I bet we're picking up on something that was very intentional, which is cool. Very, very cool.
You know, with little things like that, I'd really like to play New Game Plus again so I can view it differently.
Well, we're gonna have to if we want to do that walk up the hill scene again. So I was thinking about today, I'm like, am I have to do New Game Plus to get to that moment again? Probably. But OBS will not fail me that time. There's a thing in story and in writing where when you have a reveal, you want the audience to figure out the reveal just before it happens on the screen or in the game. So you find out, for example, Medion is the villain in this, the big villain at the end. And I remember thinking right before that was revealed, she's the bad guy. And then it was revealed, she's the bad guy. And I feel like this is another thing that was done really well just from a writing quality perspective, is there was at least half a dozen moments where I was like, oh, what about this? And then it was that right after. So this does a few things. One, it doesn't ruin the surprise because you don't figure it out way too early. But two, it also makes you feel super smart because you're like, oh, I figured that out 2 seconds before they showed it on screen. So I thought that was something else that was done really well just from a writing perspective.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Square Enix in general does like just a really good job of planning out their storylines. Like you can see how they think about it like years and years in advance, and then it all comes together and you have these characters that you might have forgotten about that you haven't seen in a couple years. These little tiny story arcs, and they just all add up perfectly in the end. It gives such a good feeling when it happens.
It's like a brilliant masterpiece. I feel like I need to say a huge thank you to Square Enix because I've enjoyed their games for more than 20 years now. I remember when we were choosing a MMORPG to play, we did a lot of looking at other systems and games, and we picked the very best one, and we definitely chose, Final Fantasy XIV, and we've been, members for, several years now, and I've absolutely loved it. I've loved all of the expansions. It's been the best game I've ever played. And I've just truly enjoyed every moment, especially Shadowbringers and Endwalker. And I just can't wait for what's next. And I'm just so impressed with the quality of game that they've created.
I still remember when we were watching videos about Final Fantasy XIV before we had finished building the computers that we built to play Final Fantasy XIV. And it's actually the second MMO that I've built a gaming PC for. The first one was EverQuest. And yes, that does date me as very old. But that was the first one that I needed to build a PC just for the game. We did the same thing for this, but if you ever want to either be elated or a little depressed, look up how many hours you've spent in the game, divide that by 24, then divide that by like 365 or 30, and you'll figure out how many months or years you've spent in that world. So endless, really, entertainment for the price.
100.
I'll never do it.
I bet. Yeah. Is there any other favorites that anyone would like to share before we move on?
I was going to say, I really liked how they brought out like the whole Zodiark fight kind of just randomly happened when Fandaniel yeeted himself into the pit. Because I had originally went into Endwalker thinking that Zodiark would be the last boss of the whole thing. And so to just have that happen randomly was really cool. And then you're sitting there the whole time like, wait, who are we going to fight at the end now?
Yeah, I agree. I have that on both, actually. I have that on something that I really like because I did enjoy that. I like it when a piece of entertainment goes to the expected conclusion and then you still get a lot more entertainment. And I think that was executed really well here. And I'll save the other side of that discussion for when we get to it. But yeah, I thought that was cool that, oh, Zodiark's done, and wait, there's more? A lot more. Yeah.
It definitely was a surprise and a very, very cool news story to figure out. And I did enjoy the whole Medion plot line. Another thing I just kind of enjoyed about this is that we're 7 parts rejoined of SM. So if you have a friend, even us all playing the game together, we're 2 SMs. if you unite with your friend, you're full SM. So I've been kind of joking about that, but that's pretty sweet. It's that not that much more to become the full thing.
Absolutely.
Rez, you had something too?
Yeah, the Hydaelyn trial, where, you're talking with Hydaelyn, and then she's like, okay, well, if you think you can take on Medion and you can save the world, well, prove this to me.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get in there and you hear a song that starts, and you're like, wait, this sounds very familiar.
Yes.
So you just get this really hyped version of answers.
And probably, I would say answers in general to me. And I guess the one where you're in Ultima Thule is getting pretty up there. But I would say in general, answers to me in all the different versions is the best song in the game.
It's just one of those things. And then you start fighting the crystals in the fight and taking down the crystals, and just what an amazing fight that was. The music makes you so hyped for the fights. It's just like, oh man, let's go.
I love all the versions. I like going into a dungeon with the Free Company, a bunch of random people, the trusts. I like the duties on my own, the trials on my own. I think all of it has a lot of value. And I loved and will remember the Venat, and I say Venat instead of Venat. I'm not French, whatever. And the Xenos fight were both super fun. Super fun. Perfect amount of challenge, not too hard, not super easy. You felt like you were tough when you beat it.
I did like that he came in as his flying dragon to save us. And he had kind of a change of heart, and took all that ether and flew out there on a dragon. He's like, this is your foe? Surely, you will not. Surely it's no match for you. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. And I really liked that part a lot. I was like, all right, cool. You're pretty cool, Xenos.
No game in history, I would dare say, and I would challenge anyone to come up with a game that does this better, because you won't. No video game in history tells you how cool you are more than Final Fantasy XIV. Like every 10 minutes, someone's like, oh, Warrior of Light, you are the best person in the world. Oh, Warrior of Light, you are so tough. Oh, Warrior of Darkness, you're the best. Thank you for bringing back the night sky. And it's effective. Like, I do feel good when this video game, when these ones and zeros are telling me how great I am. I feel good about that, and I'm glad that they like me.
Yeah, same. I also like how they sometimes poke fun at the fetch quests, where they'll just say something like, oh, now that you've saved the world, now you get to go fetch fish or whatever, and like the NPCs will say it and kind of poke fun at it while you do it.
It's funny you mentioned that, because I was watching some of the cutscenes before this recording just to kind of prepare, and I went in as my fisher, and it was just hilarious to see like my fisher pull out his fishing rod to like prepare for this big fight, and to kind of go through it as a fisher. I felt it put a different spin on things for sure.
It's amazing how connected you can become to a character that doesn't speak. It's so impressive how much you really love your character and see yourself in your character and experience this whole other world. And yet you don't technically say anything. I mean, I know we type things or we have to pick responses, so I guess they think we're talking, but it's just really impressive how you feel so connected.
Because you don't speak, it's you get to be you. It gets to be you, not, I don't know, some character, not Master Chief or whoever. I don't know why that's what popped into my head, but Nathan Drake probably would be a better example, because he talks and you see his face and all that. You get to be you in the game then, because you don't hear your voice, which is then it becomes your voice. Mira, I'm surprised you have not said anything about the troll, the little troll.
You guys, I'm obsessed with Tiny Troll. So,
Shaggles.
yeah, well, I was playing through the game a little bit earlier than, well, I was at a little farther point than Callie because he was doing some videos. And I was like, oh my gosh, you're not going to believe a little guy I found. And he's a tiny little troll. And I'm like, I'm going on little quests with him. And he's so cute. I can't stand it. And then we were talking and we're like, yeah, okay, that's got to be a minion in the game. We got to figure out how to get it. And at first I was thinking it might be like the bicolor gemstone where you have to run, the fates and get the gemstones. But then we found out it's a drop from the Altria scope. And I have literally ran that like 25 times and I have not gotten him yet. And I've been trying. And Callie's been trying to run the dead end to get the Starbird. And I've literally gotten the Starbird twice, but I can't get Tiny Troll. And
I can't get the bird to save my life.
Yeah.
I know that dungeon inside and out at this point. All the words, all the moves, all the everything. And the game's like, no, you will not have that bird ever. But it happens. I think it's okay for the game to have things that are hard to get, which is also a controversial opinion. I know a lot of people think, oh, everyone should be able to easily get everything. And I don't really agree with that. I think there should be things that are special and difficult to obtain.
Yeah.
Yeah, the first time I did the dead ends for my MS2 playthrough, the bluebird dropped and I lost the roll. Of course, I rolled like a 12 because I don't roll over 12. I think it's probably gotten that dungeon maybe 15 times by now. I haven't seen it. Not once again. And I've helped FC members. Different FC member that's like, hey, do you want to do the last dungeon? I'm like, let me come. Like, I really want that minion because it's so detailed. It's so beautiful. It's a really nice minion.
Yep.
Yeah, that is rare.
I had the same thing, Rez. It dropped first time for me too. I've got one scene that I loved. I mean, there's so much I loved. I love this whole game. It's amazing. But I really love the scene where we're talking with Medion and you can call your friends to your side. And you call Emmett Selk and Hythlodaeus. And I think my heart leapt because they're my two favorites. And I'm like, oh, they came back for us. They came back. And I was like, they're such heroes. It was just such an amazing moment for me. I've had to watch that scene so many times. And anyway, they came back. And then Emmett Selk is like, in case you didn't get it, you can call your other friends back to your side. Because they created the flowers for Medion. And, they talked about Hermes' voice about how he was going to bring her back a flower, and it warmed her heart. And then your friends are there and you get to bring everyone back to life again for your other friends. And I'm like, oh, this is amazing. I love that scene so much. And there was a lot to unpack there. And as we get further on, I've got a theory of what I think is next after Endwalker, kind of based on, most of the game playthrough. But I just absolutely love that scene.
Awesome. I agree. Also, when I watched today, I have kind of a long one, so this will give everyone an opportunity if you want to think of any more favorites. If not, we can definitely move on. So at first, I was pretty bummed by to use the slang term, the mobs that we saw in Endwalker. It was creatures and monsters that we had already seen reskinned. And I remember, Mira, something you said to me that was in some of the press about Endwalker, where they were talking about how they pulled out all the stops and they did a bunch to make Endwalker amazing. I'm like, pulled out all the stops. We've seen all these creatures before. We've seen all these monsters. This one's just purple instead of red like it was in the other one. But then as you go through the story, and this is where it turns into a favorite, you slowly learn where that time was spent. And we get to hear about the fall of 6 different societies or cultures or worlds or what have you. And that is a lot of different content and creatures to make. So there were the 3 that we deal with in the 90 dungeon, the fish people that came from underwater and, kind of destroyed the planet from taking it over. Then there were they're like Halo people. They look like they came out of the game Halo in the second one, where they bombed each other to oblivion. And then there were the weird alien, like Egyptian looking people that their world was too perfect. So they were all sad because there was no strife or no challenge or nothing difficult. The kind of perfect society people. And then you get to Ultima Thule, and there's 3 more. There's the dragons, the Ea, the EA, yeah, whatever. The head pop people that pop their heads off. Probably the best minion in the game right now. And then the Omicron robots, which were hilarious. I really enjoyed interacting with the Omicron robots. So was bummed at first because I'm like, pulled out all the stops. This is all the same stuff. And then you learn why. And it's because you literally get 6 new worlds worth of people, creatures, whatever, which was super cool. I really enjoyed the diversity in all of those.
Well, yeah, and they let you live the story. I mean, instead of telling you what happened and trying to imagine it, you got to feel it and see what it was like and really live it. And it was way more powerful.
I agree. And I found myself like, I went into Endwalker with so many different questions, like what was the Ascian's previous world like and all of these things. And they just answered it all perfectly. Like by the time Endwalker was over, found myself having like no more lore questions. I felt like everything was like tied up nicely. They did a really good job with it.
That is a perfect segue, I think, into the kind of the next question. So before we get into any dislikes, Rez, I will start with you. So I'm pretty sure I know the answer, but was Endwalker satisfying to you? What is it a satisfying conclusion to the Hydaelyn Zodiark story?
I do feel it was satisfying. I feel like it closed up, maybe not all of the loose ends, but the ones that I personally had questions to, or most of the things that they brought up. I mean, there's a lot of MSQ. And unless you're somebody that studies it, and unless you're somebody that totally goes through everything an exuberant amount of times, you're not going to remember every detail, right? So most of the main points and most of everything, there was even things that they closed up that they didn't necessarily have to. Like, they didn't need to flesh out Emmett Selk as a character. People liked him anyway. But yeah, it was satisfying to me. And I think I can't praise it enough how it was just done in such a good way. It was just done in a way where it was something special. And most games don't do it like they do. So yeah, I was totally satisfied by it. Absolutely.
That's good. That's good. That's very, very good.
I agree. And you also talked about Emmett Selk. And I felt bad about the world that he loved so much and that he lost. And it does make me feel better that in the end, I know he has Hydaelyn with him, because they decided to leave together. And I'm like, well, you know what? At least they've got each other. And Hydaelyn is pretty cool. So like, I feel at peace with that.
Yeah, I agree. Those two's dynamic was another one of my favorite parts, I think. It was just so much fun watching them interact together the whole time.
Yeah.
Another great character I had to mention too is Grahatia. I also really liked him a lot. He's probably my favorite out of the main friend group. I feel, most connected because he just played such a great role in Shadowbringers, and you just felt really connected to him, and then everything that kind of happened to him, and he always just wanted to adventure with you, and then finally he got to join your team, so to speak, and I really love that part, and he's just a very lovable character.
So side tangent, who did everyone pick to come to your room at the inn when you got to pick from all of the characters to come and give you a pep talk? Who did you all pick?
I picked Grahatia.
Yeah, Mira and I did too. Rez, Did you pick someone different?
Pick Grahatia. I didn't actually know that it was a choice. I figured it was just a free guess, just because he's always kind of been very close to us. I feel like he's always the one. If I had to pick somebody from the team to come check in on me, it would be him.
Man, I'm going to have to go back and see, because I'm sure there's cutscenes for all of them, depending on who you pick. But I would love for Square Enix to come out with a list of, who got picked the most. I bet you Graha Tia's 67% of the picks or something obtuse like that. But yeah, that's funny.
Yeah.
And most of the people in our free company pick Graha too. I mean, how many times in the game have they given us a choice like that? You know, it's usually your choices don't matter too much besides like a dialogue box or two. And this one was just totally something different. And I don't think anybody knew that.
I was satisfied with Endwalker. What I will say is that it feels very final. And Square Enix is at, wow, they're at a really important point where so many people had come over from WoW, stopped playing WoW. They've got this huge influx of players, huge influx of money, if we're honest, right? And then they cap off this huge, many year-long storyline. I'm of the opinion that they are going to have to get on something new really quick to take advantage of this new player base, or I'm worried people are going to move on. So I hope they get into something new pretty quick. But Mort, what about you? Were you satisfied with Endwalker?
Yeah, for sure. I'm also really curious where they go, because the stakes were so high in Endwalker. We had, basically the total end of the world, everything. And I would think just like they'd have to dial back the stakes, because you can't keep it really at that level or go higher. And so it's going to be a really big challenge to do that while also keeping people interested, I think. So
I think that's really intuitive what you're saying about stakes, because often in entertainment, there will be multiple stakes, and one of them will be the end of the universe and the end of the world as we know it, like you're talking about. And the other will be the more personal stories, your friends, your companions. And really, if you think back on the storyline, are you really worried about the world being destroyed, or are you worried about, Alize and Alphino? So I agree. I think to dial back the stakes, make it more personal, make it more about kind of character interaction and character development would be really wise versus doing a redo of End of the World. Yeah, that's smart. It's real smart.
When we get to the end, I have a theory about where they're going that I can talk about.
That's awesome. So let's get into the things we did not like so much.